I'm going to go ahead and do roll call so we can establish quorum. If I miss you, please let me know. We will do roll call throughout the meeting because we're all virtual. First, I've got Dima Gabe Levine.
Present.
I've got DOHS Cheryl Kennedy.
Present.
DPS Tom Niv.
Present.
ADOT Brett Kane.
Present.
Department of Agriculture Dr. Sarah Bailey.
Present.
Sorry, ADOT Bryce Rucker.
This is Bryce Rucker. I'm here.
All right. Following that, we have Arizona Corporation Commission, Mr. Joseph Pinkerman. Or his alternate, Mr. Eric Villa. Hearing none. Industrial Commission of Arizona, Mr. Bryce Rucker.
Yeah, Bryce Rucker. I'm here.
Thank you, sir. All right. Department of Forestry and Fire Management, Cassie Peters. Or do we have Mr. Bill Boyd? All right, hearing none. Mr. Paul Marsh with the State Mine Inspector's Office.
Good afternoon, I'm present.
Thank you, sir. Arizona Fire Chiefs Association, Mr. James Johnson. Alternate, Mr. Mark Burdick.
This is Jason Jessamine in for Mark Burdick.
Okay, thank you, sir. And then do we have Mr. Brad Cohen? Hearing none. All right, Department of Health, Ms. Teresa Ennert.
Yeah, this is Teresa. I'm present.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. All right. So we needed 6 for quorum. We currently have 9. With that being said, we can call the meeting to order at 1:10 p.m. So real quick, what we'll do is a little bit of the virtual housekeeping. Obviously, being that we're in a 100% virtual environment, please mute your microphones when not speaking. Please don't place your call on hold. Because we are 100% virtual, please state your name when offering either a second or opposing or abstaining in a motion. And since this is a virtual meeting, I'll have to ask for a roll call vote for each motion that is made. Do I have any questions regarding the virtual housekeeping at this time? All right. So with that, we will roll into new business. Item 6 on this agenda will be taken out of order. The commission has asked for legal advice on several matters. Therefore, we will go into executive session first. Commission members will go into executive session for the purpose of obtaining legal advice from the commission's attorney on the agenda items pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute 38-431. So with that being said, the first item is going to be going into executive session to discuss these items. Before I get a motion for that, do the commission members have the link for the executive session? It should have been sent as a separate calendar invite. I just want to confirm before we roll over there and we're missing people, because we will have to reestablish quorum over there.
Yes, I have it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Before we move, just to make sure I'm there too, which link is that? How is it identified? I have 2 in parallel.
It should be labeled as the executive session, Jeff. I believe it is a Google meeting. So this one for the special meeting for the
got it.
commission is a Zoom. The other one should be a Google meeting.
All right. All right. I'll be there shortly. Let me find it and I'll be there.
Okay. Well, I still got to close out this one and roll into executive session. All right. So with that, do I have a motion to recess and recess this open session and go into an executive session?
Paul Marsh, by motion.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh.
Bryce Rucker, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Rucker. So I will have to conduct a roll call vote before we can move this forward. So we'll start with Dima, Gabe Levine,
You're asking for my vote on that, right? So I
Yes.
vote yay.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Kennedy,
Aye.
Captain Tom Neve,
Aye.
thank you, sir. Brent Kane with ADOT,
Aye.
Dr. Sarah Bailey, Department of Ag,
Aye.
all right. Industrial Commission of Arizona, Mr. Rucker, you already seconded. We still need the vote.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marsh,
Aye.
thank you, sir. And then last one, Mr. Jessamine,
Aye.
thank you, sir. All right, and with that, the motion to recess this open session and go into the executive session passes. So we will be logging off here for the rest of the year. You guys can hang around, and then we will be back after the executive session with the commissioners.
There's a question in chat.
Oh, sorry, for whatever reason, it doesn't load correctly. That is hard to determine what the specific amount of time is. What we can do is we can have someone check in here regularly with you guys while we're still in the executive session to see how long it's going to take or how long we're anticipating the executive session to be. So I'll have either Michelle or myself check in back in here, log in, and just give you guys an update to see where we're at with the executive session.
I'm going to have to make somebody, Joseph, are you going to be available? Joseph Cruz, can I make you the host so that you can handle the meeting so I can go into executive session?
Michelle, I'm actually gonna have to step out here in just a little bit. So I won't be on the meeting here in about 15 minutes.
Okay, Sandra, or is there anybody who wants to volunteer who's not a AZSERC member?
I'll be waiting.
Okay, let me make you a host. Give me a moment. Everybody else, I'll load the other meeting and we'll do that. So give me a moment.
All right. So I'm going to do a roll call one more time so we can continue the open session. With that being said, do I have Director Levine present?
Here.
Thank you, sir. Do I have Ms. Kennedy?
Present.
Thank you. Captain Tom Neve? Okay, looks like we might have lost him. Mr. Brent Kane?
Present.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Sarah Bailey?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Bryce Rucker?
This is Bryce, I'm present.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Paul Marsh.
I'm present.
Thank you, sir. And Jason Jessamine.
I'm present.
Thank you, sir. And Miss Ennert.
Present.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe one, two.
Josh Henson is also here from DPS.
It looks
Oh.
like the captain rejoined us.
Did he? Okay. Captain Neve, are you present?
Yes, I'm present.
Thank you, sir. I'll go ahead and mark that. And with that, we can resume the open session. The time is now 2:37 p.m. Let me go ahead and document that real quick. All right. Is there anything that the commission members want to start with from the agenda, or anybody want to take the lead on any of the items that were discussed during the executive session?
So I guess for discussion, because I don't know that I have a complete motion formed in my mind, but it makes sense to start probably with the first item, the review of the Coconino County compliance letter. My understanding is that there's one compliance related issue, and it pertains to documentation of membership, and that only voting membership or voting as outlined in the official approved 13 person or 13 position voting roster. Based off our discussions, it sounds like perhaps we need to get some clarification from Coconino County that although they have some varying ways that they are organizing the LEPC, that for voting purposes, they are in fact only counting the members that are listed on the official roster and abiding by quorum. And if that's the case, then they are in compliance. That's my question.
And to add to that, Captain, they have to follow the state guidelines on how they list their personnel. They can keep their own roster for their own purposes, but for the purposes of AZERC, they need to follow the roster for the 5 positions required for voting.
Yeah, you talk about the five groups.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Under 49-124.
This is Dr. Bailey. Along those lines, if there are challenges with maintaining representation from each of those statutorily required groups, if the county could provide documentation of their efforts to recruit or provide names or dates or conversations that may support the, again, documentation that they have done their due diligence to try and fill those groups with appropriate people for their community, it would help. It would help to at least support the commission's ability to
I think what was discussed was, and correct me if I'm wrong, was potentially issuing a clarification letter to Coconino County with those items that was listed by Dr. Bailey and Captain Levine.
Is that going to be a motion, Mr. Marsh?
Yes, it will be. I motion that we write a clarification letter.
I have a question about the motion. So the clarification letter will then ask for some additional information, and once that's provided, then we can issue a letter saying that they are in fact in compliance. That's the process that we're going with.
Yes, I'm just thinking it through in my head. Yes, I think that is correct. We want to make sure that they're doing good faith, so we can move forward. If they are doing good faith, as Dr. Bailey said, trying to locate a community member or whatever under the the 5 levels they don't have, then we can move forward with another letter stating they're out of compliance.
Again, on this is Jeff Cantrell with the AG, and I would suggest rather than stating that they're in compliance, that the commission recognizes their efforts and deems them to be acceptable, but also requests that they continue their efforts until they can fill those appropriate slots.
That was well put.
Just a wordsmith.
So, Paul, if I could just, so I understand, if I'm paraphrasing your motion correctly, you're making the motion that we issue a clarification letter that requests from Coconino County assurances that their voting is abiding by the official approved AZSERC roster, which outlines the relevant mandatory groups or categories of individuals that are on the LEPC, and that they provide some sort of documentation that shows a good faith effort to recruit members in the vacant categories, and that we encourage them to continue to do so. Once we receive that, then we will find them in compliance. Okay. Since that's your motion with the head up and down nodding, then I second said motion.
Yes, I agree with that.
Is there anything in the regards to the emergency response plans from the commission regarding either of the counties?
We have to stay on Coconino because that's where we're at. If we can move on to the next one after. Sorry.
Okay, so we're doing them as individual items?
That's easier for me in the minutes, yes.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the floor, and for discussion purposes, since Mr. Beckett from Coconino is here, if there's any concerns or if there's any additional items that we should be aware of, if you'd like to bring that up shortly. Mr. Beckett, are there any immediate concerns from the county with the motion?
So are you able to hear us now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I apologize. We were switching over our mic. Thank you, Commission Member. We appreciate the acknowledgement here. Thank you all for reviewing everything. We know there was a ton of information to review. There was a lot of communication pieces that we're trying to link up and to clean up here moving forward. We don't disagree with the voting roster. Again, for whatever reason, we're using that 13 number. That's not the number we use. We only have 9 voting members, not 13, just for clarity in your guys' meeting minutes and meeting notes. The roster that has been provided previously with the original non-compliance was not the Coconino County roster, nor has it been the one we've used. That roster, in fact, counts alternate voting members as a primary. It was a clerical error. I think we brought it up in the last meeting. We only have 9 primary voting members if all the seats are filled. But yes, so that's the only one that we utilize is the one, and that has been submitted to the state. Why that's not the one that tracks, I get it. I think the one that you guys saw with the non-compliance letter, I think is what aligns with Michelle's tracking on her side, but it's not the one that we're currently using. That was submitted in your packet, but that is the one that we utilize to meet quorum. So yes, we 100% agree, and we plan on utilizing that moving forward. The other piece, I think, is good acknowledgement to also note we have drafted letters. I have a letter that I can send over that we use as just kind of a blanket letter to get people to attend. We also have 2 of those broadcast media individuals who are invited to every single meeting. They are on the invite list, and they were the assigned representation from their organizations. Those are who they continue to want to see attend those meetings, and they choose not to attend. So we do not put their name in the voting spot because they have never been at one of the meetings where they could have been voted in by the rest of the commission or our committee. So we have chosen not to put their name in there, even though they're on every single invite. And I believe Michelle and that team should have their approved membership as well. So they exist. We just don't acknowledge it simply because they've chosen not to show up, and we only have very, very limited media representation in the North region. But again, it's something we're constantly working on. I did meet the new photographer for the Daily Sun up here 2 days ago. I don't know if she's going to want to attend or not, but I did put it on her radar. I think those are the only comments I had, and I appreciate the time.
And I'm going to suggest a friendly amendment to Mr. Marsh and the director's motion, which would be to, in our clarification letter, request that the Coconino County LEPC resubmit their current plan for fiscal year or calendar year 2024, resubmit their current voting roster with a crossover reference between their organizational charts and the Arizona Revised Statutes 5 statutorily required groups, as well as documentation of their previous recruitment efforts and acknowledgement that a good faith effort will be made to continue to engage those groups going forward. Mr. Marsh, Director, is that amendment acceptable?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, I second that amended change. And I guess I would ask Coconino County with Dr. Bailey's amendment to the motion, requesting that you guys resubmit the plan. I think the use of the word resubmit in the official minutes acknowledges the fact that the plan was originally submitted, and for clarification and as an administrative procedure, requesting that you guys resubmit it for a second time so that we have it officially for the record, ensuring that we've got the correct updated plan and the correct updated roster, recognizing that when I said 13, that perhaps that was not the official number. And I think the resubmission of both of those items helps us ensure that we've got the right things on file.
Andy, can I clarify something for the minutes, please? This is Michelle. Real quick, I was confused as to whether we were going to move forward with the AZSERC official membership roster for establishing quorum, or if we were going to accept the organizational chart that Coconino County developed and use that one.
So the friendly amendment was that the county would resubmit their current voting roster with a crossover reference to the statutorily required groups. So they need to identify based on their own org chart how those voting members would fit into the 5 groups as defined under ARS.
Yeah, I think Coconino County also was pretty clear in their discussions that they've been abiding by the official voting roster. Sounds like there's a discrepancy between the official voting roster that we have on file and the current official voting roster, whether it's 9 voting members or 13 voting members based off of who's an alternate and who's not, but that the org chart is a function of some communication things for statutory open meeting law and voting purposes. The Coconino County LAPC is following the statute and utilizing their official roster and intends to continue to do so.
Thank you. And there's something in the chat from Captain Neve The extension for the 2022 on the ERP, the extension was for 2022 and should be resubmitted for 2023, not 2024. And that's correct. So you would need to amend.
So can I clarify? They're going to submit their current 2024 plan for compliance purposes for 2023 review. Yes? Because I don't want their old plan. I want their new plan.
Yes, that is acceptable, Dr. Bailey.
Do we also need to clarify that they're still on the hook for 2024 review then too?
If stated that their plan is not changing, they can submit covering both.
Do we
So
need
it
to
just
include
is
that
being-
in the letter then?
Yeah, it would be submitting for 2023 with the LEPC having discussed that there's no changes necessary to the plan currently, then it would qualify for both the submission for 23 and submission for 24 for review and recommendations by the commission.
Thank you.
Am I amending the motion without clarification? Because your motion says to request resubmit ERP for 2024.
That one's you, Dr. Bailey.
I'm happy to just put it in the letter if we want to put it in the motion just for completeness sake. Director or inspector, whichever one of you is taking credit for this motion in the end.
Inspector Marsh.
I think you own it now, Dr. Bailey.
I think it should be in the letter for point of context, so we'll add it in as the motion.
Okay. I'm working on it. I'm spelling it all out because it's got 3 different amendments so far. All right, let me see.
I have it recorded. That's too convoluted to catch up on.
Okay.
Sorry, Commissioner, I don't mean to interrupt. I know there was a question asked of Coconino. We never responded. Did you want us to respond now, or would you prefer we wait?
What was that? Sorry, I missed it.
I apologize. I know that there was a question asked. I believe Commissioner Bailey asked a question towards the Coconino County LAPC. Would you prefer we respond now or wait to a later point in the meeting?
I would wait because we're probably going to change this motion a couple more times. So just hold, please.
No problem. We'll be here as needed.
Well, or just wait until we get the letter finished, then you can reply to that.
All right, so currently as it stands, so who was the original author of the motion? Was that Mr. Marsh?
As Inspector, yeah.
Okay. Inspector Marsh, his motion was for Coconino County to resubmit their organizational chart for membership, cross-reference with the AZSERC chart, a new submission of their ERP stating for coverage for 2023 and their submission for 2024 with approval from the LEPC for the 2024 submission. Do I have that motion captured correctly?
And they need to provide documentation of their previous and ongoing recruitment efforts to fill the vacant AZSERC required, ARS required groups.
Showing good faith.
Okay. All right, so let me repeat that one more time. So the motion I have on the table right now from Inspector Marsh is that Coconino County will resubmit their AZSERC membership roster, cross-referencing their county organizational chart, submit their ERP for the 2023 calendar year, with approval from the LEPC to submit it as a 2024 emergency response plan as well, and provide documentation of their recruitment efforts for those vacancies on the ARS groups that are identified. Do I have that motion correct?
Yes, I believe you do.
Do I have a second?
Gabe had already
A
seconded.
second.
Do you have another one?
Okay. What's that?
Never mind.
Okay, so all right, so I have the motion and then I have a second from Director Levine. Now I will pull up the roster to do, because we have to do each vote individually. All right. Director Levine, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kennedy?
Aye.
Thank you. Captain Neve?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Brent Kane?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Sarah Bailey?
In favor.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Rucker?
In favor.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jessamine?
Aye.
Thank you. And Ms. Ennert?
Aye. In favor.
All right. And with that, the motion carries. Do I need to repeat the motion, or is everyone okay?
We're good.
I think we
Okay.
beat that horse enough.
All right. Let me pull up. The next item we have is the review of the letter to Pima County LEPC. It is open for discussion unless we have a motion for a resolution.
I'm sorry, Archangel, I'm sorry. Can we have a moment to conclude on our agenda item? I apologize. There are a couple of points we'd like to clarify.
Sure, that's for the decision, or the decision of the commission, if they want to hear that now or
Yes,
do it for
that's
later business.
mentioned.
I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would like to hear as well.
Okay.
Thank you. So again, thank you, commissioners, very much. Commissioner Marsh, I believe you mentioned it earlier. One of the concerns that we spoke of was, and it has not been addressed here at all, is that we received a non-compliance letter that was in fact factually incorrect. Has that been addressed? The fact is we did submit our plan for 2023. We understand we're going to resubmit now. That's fine. That's all good. We're good with the motion. But this goes back to, there were a lot of issues in that compliance letter that were very unflattering to the county, that were factually not true. We're moving forward. We get that. But I believe, sir, I think you were referencing a written response to that original letter that was inaccurate, stating, you know, we've researched. We now understand there was a plan submitted. In fact, it was planned and approved, by the way. It was submitted and approved by AZSERC staff. We're resubmitting it now for, again, a second approval, I think, which is fine. We were glad to work with that. Those are things that have been kind of glazed over here a little bit. There was a very inappropriate letter sent to Coconino County. It is public record. I made the request during the first meeting that there be some effort to acknowledge those mistakes and to correct them. Now, if this public meeting and the records of this public meeting are that acknowledgement of those mistakes in that compliance letter, I'm great with that. Doesn't need to be in writing necessarily, but I do believe it needs to be in the minutes. It needs to be officially recorded that there were mistakes in that non-compliance letter, that things that were said in that non-compliance letter were not accurate, so that if somebody makes a FOIA, if we end up in some type of hazmat response situation down the road, Coconino County is not hung out legally with a letter that's on file that says that we were essentially maliciously non-compliant. And I'm very challenged with that as the emergency manager for the county. So a written response is awesome, or if the commission wishes to today to say, yes, we reviewed that letter, we realized that there were errors in that letter, I would be fine with that as long as it's on the record. So thank you, Mr. Marsh, for bringing that up earlier.
And Sam Beckett, Chair of the Coconino LEPC. Just a quick follow-up in reference to the motion. Our regulations on our voting process or in our bylaws, would you also like to have us submit the bylaws, since that's the plan isn't really where that lies. It lies within our bylaws. I'm assuming you would prefer we have the bylaws, which would help with that cross-reference as well as the plan. I just want to clarify that real quick.
So I'll let the captain speak to the clarification on the 2022 versus 2023, because I think he understands that better. Absolutely. I think the bylaws are an important attachment or annex to the plan. And if that serves as your support or serves as the crossover reference for, you know, this voting member is the information officer and also fits under group 2, et cetera, fantastic. To your first point, we are actually still looking backwards and still trying to get an understanding of if things went wrong, where they went wrong, so that we can correct them going forward. So I don't know that this matter is actually finished yet. And there are some things that we've asked ERU to continue to provide the commission with regards to March, April, May of last year, March, April, May of this year. So all I can tell you is I don't consider this matter finished yet.
I'll close my comments. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Captain, if you want to comment on, you know, the extension from 2022 discussion, since I know you seem to have a better handle on that than I do.
So, Tom Neve, DPS. The understanding I have is that the extension was for 2022, not 2023, and it seems reasonable that when it was submitted in 2023 that Coconino would believe that that would suffice only for 2022, but 2023, but apparently it didn't suffice for 2023. That's why we made the motion, basically for clarification on that, to basically state that it just needs to be resubmitted for 2023, and if that's still the plan that you want to stand for 2024, it could be resubmitted for that to gain compliance with that particular one. Can you all still hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I got it now. So hopefully that clarifies that. That's why we made the motion. It was for clarification on exactly what that was, not to change what was submitted. And again, I think it's just a misunderstanding between, as stated in the previous meeting, between DEQ and the LEPC as to what that violation was and why that was.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Yeah, our plan has not changed because we've been waiting for it to be approved through AZSERC. So we've kind of been on hold, which is why we've been canceling our meetings until we've received clarification. So the plan has received no amendments. It'll be the exact same plan you reviewed in this packet. Happy to change a revision date. Yeah, there was something in particular that we are not compliant in, since the last notice we got was that plan met all of the compliance. Please let us know and we will make those amendments and submit it to you, so that way we don't have to go back and forth for 6 months on it. But yeah, just so we have a guiding document to help us if there's something missing. But yes, happy to resubmit that along with the bylaws and our voting roster, just for clarification. But yeah, we've been on hold here until we get final approval.
Well, and I want to address that because we talked about that and it's going to come up in a later bullet point. I think approval, I didn't understand that term, approve, you know, decline, et cetera. So we're going to be talking about that too. And approve is probably not going to be the language we're going to be using going forwards.
Okay, thank you.
And as listed in the motion, your roster for Coconino County doesn't meet state requirements under 49-124. So that's why we need to make sure that your when you resubmit it, that there's a cross reference to meet 49-124.
Yeah, happy to do so. We've drafted our bylaws to align that way. So yeah, we'll submit that with our bylaws for review. Thank you.
So Wes, does that, what just transpired, does that meet your expectations? Are you happy with, or at least can you live with the resolution that we've got right now?
Yeah, Commissioner Levine, thank you for that. I'm glad we're moving forward. We're going to solve this issue moving forward. The challenge I have is what occurred in the past. I get it, it's in the past. Nobody's willing to acknowledge that, so that's fine. We'll let it go. But I'm making public record now that there were gross errors by the AZERC staff in that letter. We're moving forward. We're going to fix it all. Resubmitting to have a plan approved that was already submitted and approved is confusing to me, but I understand why we're doing it, and I think it makes sense to move forward. So as long as we have it on the record at this point, and I hope that, just also for the record, I hope that moving forward, the process with the AZERC staff is better and cleaner. And I will tell you that I'm already seeing improved open meeting procedures today. Archangel's doing a great job of documenting and making sure that the meeting is going as it should. We're already seeing that. We were coming in earlier that it's already running much more along the lines of open meeting laws. So I think we're in a better spot moving forward. So Commissioner Levine, I think we're satisfied. Thank you at this point.
Thanks, Wes. And whatever it's worth, I do apologize on behalf of, well, at least myself. I don't know if I'm allowed to speak on behalf of the commission writ large, but I think that it is worth entering in the minutes that I personally do not believe that Coconino County was intentionally or maliciously attempting to circumvent any sort of processes, and that your hearts and your intentions were always in the right place to serve your community and do right by the residents and folks that live in Coconino County, and also recognize and acknowledge that we've got, into Dr. Bailey's point, like we have some internal things that we need to clean up on process procedure, and it should not be this difficult for us to get through these, what I would categorize as routine processes. And I mean, I don't think any of us wants to spend this much time deliberating these things, and there's plenty of room for improvement on the AZSERC side of the house, and the commission will continue to work towards that.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Levine. I appreciate those words, and yeah, we're good. We're moving forward. We will get this squared up with you at the direction of our chair, and
Wow, nice.
So thank you all.
I would also add,
Wow.
in all of the documentation, and I think health staff mute, in all the documentation, it says the AZSERC will provide assistance, and I would encourage you to ask for it. And I would encourage you to maybe ask louder or more often. And if you're not getting a response in what you consider a timely manner, be a squeaky wheel. But I think one of the things we discussed in the other meeting was that it is our responsibility to assist the counties to comply. So,
well, and I will say, just closing on that, Doctor, is there have been communications with the AZERC staff since those meetings that have gone completely unanswered. No response whatsoever from the AZERC staff. So we are trying, but it has to be a two-way street. So thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate it.
All right. If we are good with that, we can move over to the item regarding the Pima County letter.
Dr. Levine, what you said.
Yeah, so I guess, and I know Matt's on. Sandra, are you still on? Yeah, you're, I think.
I am, and the chair for the Pima County LEBC, Mr. Lane Spalla, is on.
Excellent. Then I'll direct this question maybe to Lane then, and you can chime in if there's additional context y'all like to add. I think in the interest of resolving this in the most expeditious and direct way as possible, I just want to make sure that we're meeting your expectations. So if Lane, if we give you in this meeting and enter into the minutes guidance on the duties, roles, and responsibilities of an emergency coordinator, will that provide you with what you need in order to make a determination on who that is, and then submit the final piece of information so that the commission can accept the plan?
That and the question of who that person, what are the limitations on who that person is, and I'll let Sandra talk to this further. By the way, Lane Spalla, I am the chair of the Pima County's Local Emergency Planning Committee. Yes, I'm willing to hear that. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. There were some inaccuracies in our letter as well that just to for the record, primarily about submitting the plan. It said that we had not submitted a plan since 2021, where in 2022 a plan was submitted, and the plan just had a question. There was one question being asked about the roles and responsibilities of the emergency coordinator, not so much of as listed in the ARS 49128. That talks about what the public is supposed to do with the reports and their reporting concerns. Our question was what is expected of us once that is received. So we're looking forward to hearing that line. With that, Sandra, can you please follow up on anything else that I may not have covered?
Yeah, I yield the floor. I have nothing else to add.
Awesome. Then I think it's the opinion of this commission that the spirit and the intent of 49-128 in the ARS is that emergency coordinator is someone who has both the expertise and the ability to exercise some judgment regarding what appropriate follow-up actions need to be taken, and can do so in a timely manner. And as far as what those follow-up actions look like, that is largely directed by the local emergency planning commission's plan. So as an example, if it's a small spill and there is no follow-up actions required, then by all means, take down a note, and that's all that's required. But if there's additional notifications that need to go out, then those notifications go out, or whatever is the process that's been agreed upon by the collective planning committee for the right actions to take. I think that again, the intent behind all of that, and the intent behind having an emergency coordinator, is so that the community and the local facilities or potential haulers have an identified point of contact of when there's an emergency, who do they call and who do they let know that this thing has happened, and that coordinator or coordination point, it might be a duty officer, it might be a person, whatever the case may be, that coordination person, that coordination point is notified, and that they do what they need to in accordance with the plan. Is that enough guidance to move forward, or do we need to have additional discussion?
I think, again, we talked about receiving it, but we're not. And Sandra, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the Pima County attorney is looking at what the expectations are. What are the liabilities set forth for us legally to do once those notifications are made? I think that's the primary question that we were just looking for. Is yes, we get the notifications, but what are the expectations of us moving forward once they are received? That's what is missing in writing, and I think that's the primary point that we are trying to address here before putting Pima County's Office of Emergency Management and Pima County in a position of not quite knowing what the expectations are of them. Sandra, did I capture that?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So 2 points of clarification, and has been the onus sort of this conversation. One, I will say the position of the county, and I say county with a capital C, as a government and a representative of this organization in this office. We are not associated with the Pima County with a lower C, Local Emergency Planning Committee. Our obligation that has been provided by our Board of Supervisors and County Administration in support to this committee is administrative in function. The conversation and the clarification point was, what are the roles and responsibilities of the Community Emergency Coordinator, not as listed in 49-128. That's the first reference to this particular statute that's been provided. It was not related to that. It was cited in the plan compliance, which was under 49-125. In that lack of clarity is where the Local Emergency Planning Committee was requesting guidance and clarification because of the inconsistencies in guidance that was provided by ERU staff on multiple occasions. The committee had chosen and paused in compliance with the plan or submission or edit and modification to understand clearly what the expectation is from guidance through this AZERC or those having authority in providing guidance to the Local Emergency Planning Committee on what the expectation is for the action once received by the reportable release. The only thing that's cited in statute referenced EPGRA, and we as a county department supporting administratively this commission of the Local Emergency Planning Committee did not feel comfortable that we had been provided that authority to support in the expanded role that was required as of or being communicated by the ERU staff. So the point of contention or the pause has been until the written correspondence was provided by the Attorney General's office. We were not able to support the committee in accepting that responsibility and would leave it to the committee to make the decision and determination on who within their organizational structure would be best suited to accept those responsibilities.
Yeah, and so I think I understand the separation there between county governments and the counties, as in lowercase c's, Local Emergency Planning Committee. And I think that's a function of local control and a function of what is best for Pima County. What does the collective Local Emergency Planning Committee want to do as far as their plan goes? There is not a detailed, when you're notified, do X, Y, and Z for that emergency coordinator position listed anywhere in statute or code that I am aware of. And I would defer to our legal counsel, who I'm fairly certain is going to say there isn't a detailed checklist description of what that person should do. But the intent there is that you've identified someone who those notifications are going to go to, and then based off of the consensus and collective planning committee's efforts in your emergency response plan, that response plan will outline what it is they expect that emergency coordinator to do. The county's decision to take on that role based off the details of the plan and your council's assessment of the legal liabilities, I think is all well within the purview of Pima County, but I don't know that that's necessarily something that this commission should be weighing in on as to whether or not Pima County OEM should be that coordinator. I think that's a discussion best left between Pima County OEM and the Local Emergency Planning Committee, with the understanding and expectation that as far as this committee is concerned, the requirement and the guidance, regardless of what ERU may have provided in the past, the latest updated guidance from this commission, unless someone else on one of the other commissioners feels differently, is that you identify someone who has both the experience and the ability to use some judgment on what actions need to be taken with your local emergency response plan as the guide. And I think there's probably some additional things that I would pull looking at 49-128 that are kind of implied there, that if the local spiller needs to notify someone orally, within whatever the verbiage is. I think it's something to the effect of, immediately after they get knowledge of the event, as long as it doesn't delay response activities or whatever. So if it's an immediate notification that needs to be done orally, I think the implied task or the implied planning assumption needs to be that your emergency coordinator needs to be able to receive oral reports from a facility. But at the end of the day, it's who is that point of contact that will start to execute the tasks outlined to them in your plan. And whether that's Pima County OEM, sounds like maybe not, because of the way that the relationship exists and has been codified by the board, and that perhaps the LEPC needs to identify a different entity or jurisdiction or individual that would receive those things and start that coordination process. I guess my question would be is, with this conversation being entered into the minutes, does that meet your documentation requirements? Or do you need additional documentation in the form of a formal letter from the commission or something else that helps guide your planning efforts moving forward? I view this as planning guidance to the Pima County Local Emergency Planning Committee, and recognize that there were some discussions that were occurring previously between the AG's office and the Pima County Attorney's office, and my understanding is that there were no concerns from the Pima County Attorney's office, and that perhaps there's some communication links that need to get reestablished there, or we can bring those folks together to have that discussion. But I think to resolve the immediate issue, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, what we're looking for is planning guidance on how best to select an emergency coordinator, and what we've provided in this meeting verbally, I think, is what we would write in a letter and provide to you if you would like something in writing, that if the minutes do not suffice. Does that work or no?
Sandra, I'm going to defer to you to comment, please.
Administratively, I will say, in providing the correspondence and supporting Mr. Spalla, the request, as I understood it from the Pima County LEPC, was for written documentation. I understand it'll be written into the minutes. I'm not here to speak on behalf of the LEPC. If we administratively provide that to them at their next meeting and they have any further correspondence or clarification that's requested from our office and emergency management, we're happy to facilitate that continued administrative support to them. But I know that the item that they continually have been asking for almost 2 years now was written correspondence to be documented, so that there was no confusion or misinterpretation as to the requirements of the community emergency coordinator, and also whether or not that community emergency coordinator or the notification to a community emergency coordinator had to be a specifically named person, or could be an entity or facilitated process agreed upon by the local emergency planning committee. So I understand that they would prefer written correspondence.
Hey, can I take a stab at this? Pima County, it's your plan. Put whatever in your plan works for your county and is appropriate for your system, and then submit the plan. It's your plan. You tell us how you want it to run. You tell us what you can do legally. And if it covers all the dots and checks all the boxes, great. But it's your plan. That's why it's your county legal person. You guys need to talk to and find out what you can and can't do for you. We're not going to tell you how to run your county.
No, but we were just making sure that we're in compliance with the expectations of what to do now that we have received that. What is AZSERC expecting of us as an LEPC to do with that? Our plan lists that, we receive the plans, that we keep current lists of facilities, that we assist them with their plans if they reach out to us for assistance, and that we're liaisoning with AZSERC and are a part of that, and that we maintain our flow commodity plans and so on. But those are the items listed in our current plan We were just looking for clarification of the expectations of that emergency coordinator from AZERC. So if your end result is that is for us to determine, then put that in writing. We'll put something out, and you know, we haven't gotten official response in almost 2 years now. I've got emails dating back to, you know, January of 2022, where we simply said, what are the expectations? And we've kind of been at a standstill since. So with that, if you can share your response back to us of what the expectations are, and if that means whatever you decide or you feel is comfortable with you, and then we will review it, then that's how we will take it moving forward. And we'll take that to our next meeting and discuss it and see. But our plans were submitted. They just didn't have a name in there. We were holding off on submitting who our emergency coordinator is with answers to the 2 questions. What are the expectations from AZERC for them once these things have been notified, or even in general, what are their expectations? And 2, does it have to be an individual person? Can it just be an entity? Can it be a group, an email address? Those are the 2 questions, and the reason why we did not put a name in there, but everything else in our plan we're comfortable with. I understand you're comfortable with, and that's what's been holding us up this you know, for the last 2 years.
So Director,
yeah,
I'm going to make a motion that we basically put Director Levine's guidance in a document as a clarification letter to the bullet points that were just discussed about. You know, the director said that spillers have a place or a location or something to call or report that a thing has happened, and that wherever that information goes to a person who has the experience and capability to use their judgment to do whatever it is in your county plan. So that would be my motion, that we will just put what was discussed in a letter, a kind of a clarification letter to you with the expectations.
Thank you, Commissioner Bailey. Sandra, we'll take that letter and see. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I second that motion, and if you all will indulge me for like 2 minutes, I'll share my screen on a draft letter, and if the commissioners are good with it, then we can add that to the motion.
Huzzah.
I'm not sure if Angel or Michelle needs to turn.
Yeah. Michelle, can you give them permissions to share your screen?
I did.
You should be good there, Director.
I think you guys can see that there.
Chair, Board, this is Brent King from here at ADOT. Can that be zoomed in a little bit? I can't read that. Thank you.
Trying to think who notification from a responsible party. We'll go with that.
Hey, Director, there's a friendly amendment from Sandra that it's actually a community emergency coordinator.
There we go. Community emergency coordinator, not response coordinator, just community emergency coordinator.
Mr. Berrigan or Michelle, is that accurate?
a little
This
hard
is
to read, sorry.
Yeah, this is Jeff Cantrell. The language in the statute is Community Emergency Coordinator.
Thank you, sir.
And then do we need to say that those actions are outlined further in the county's plan?
Yep.
Or to be outlined further in the county's plan? I will amend my motion to say that the language provided by Director Levine be put on CERC letterhead and sent to the county for clarification of the letter that we sent them earlier.
Can you email that to us?
Yes, let me wordsmith this top sentence real quick, and then I will second Dr. Bailey's motion.
Thank you.
While he's wordsmithing, Lane, to your point, we did discuss that we perhaps could have chosen a different word in the letter, that indeed the plan had been submitted. And I think, Archangel, you had some comments that you were going to share an open session to that point.
Yeah, that under EPGRA, the commission doesn't approve the county's plan. They approve the administrative functions of receiving the plan with the exception of the required items. So what they're approving or denying is simply the actions that was taken to review to make sure that the minimum requirements were met, not that the plan itself that was submitted by the county. So for clarification, there is no approval of the emergency response plan by the commission whatsoever. It is simply they approve and ratify the actions of reviewing the plan, and we don't review the meat and potatoes. We review to make sure that the minimum requirements outlined between EPGRA and the ARS are in the plan, and that is it. So it's not, so plans are not supposed to be hindered in their functionality by the commission nor by the staff. It is simply they are approving the administrative functions of the process, saying we looked at the plan, they met the minimum requirements. The commission therefore can actually make recommendations or not make recommendations and provide them back to the LEPCs. The LEPCs can take into account the recommendations, or they cannot. The commission does not have any authority to direct what can and cannot be inside of those plans. It's, each county in the state is a little bit different, and they function different, and they know what works and what doesn't work for them. So that approval piece is strictly the administrative function of the receipt, confirming the requirements of the plan that are outlined by EPGRA and ARS, and nothing more. The plan is still a living document. The LEPC can do whatever they want with it. They can modify it 10 times and resubmit it later. What is being approved is the administrative function of meeting the requirements. Should they not meet the requirements, that's where it's communicated to the commission stating, hey, we received this, but it does not meet these requirements. This is where we're at. It doesn't mean that we're stopping all functionality of that document. That plan is still to be implemented as the intention that it has behind it. So the approval piece is simply the commission approving the administrative functions of meeting those 13 requirements and nothing else.
And I think there was a clarification requested on a line in the non-compliance letter to Pima County that they had not submitted an ERP to the commission since 2021. And there was a question from the county on the accuracy of that statement. And I think the answer was similar to what we just went through with Coconino, where there was maybe a misunderstanding as to which cycle was being reviewed.
Yes, that was discussed with the commission, that there was the incorrect year was put in as a typo on that letter when it went out. and that was clarified afterwards. Off the top of my head, because I don't review the emergency response plans, I don't have that information in front of me, but that was clarified that the year was incorrect in that letter.
So our apologies for that.
No, that's good. And if it's appropriate to comment at this point as well, will there be any changes to the fact that back in March of this year, I received a letter as the chair of the Pima County Local Emergency Planning Committee that our HMEP grant funding can no longer go through our office, and that we have lost because of this non-compliance. We have no authority to distribute grant funds, and that if individuals within the Pima County area want to access those funds, they can go ahead and apply individually. So that's still pending as a result of this, as actions that AZERC took on our local, on our LEPC. And will that stand, or can we address that as well?
We have Sandra's hand up as well. Let's take that, and then we'll address your question, Mr. Spalla.
Thank you.
Mine is a follow-up, so if you want to address Chair Spalla's question first, I'm happy to hold.
Michelle, do you want to clarify the information for the HMEP, please?
So when we review criteria for HMEP compliance, one of the criteria items that we look at is whether the county LEPC county or LEPC is in compliance. Have they had their meetings? Have they complied with their emergency response plans? Have they responded to our request for information? And when we discussed this matter at the time with our previous executive director, Laura Malone, who was actually on the AZSERC, she agreed that we should, that we had the ability to no longer provide HMEP funding to those LEPCs or counties that were not in compliance with what the AZSERC required, which was their meetings, their ERPs, and whatever else we come up with, you know, what the items that we have listed. Because we had been in constant contact with Pima County regarding this issue for several years, it finally come to a head when the non-compliance letter went out, that a decision was made that the HMEP not be awarded to Pima County for the next HMEP performance period, which is October 1st of 2024 through September 30th of 2025.
So I think we can address that, Lane, with a motion, but since there's a motion on the floor, I'd like to, can we finish that and then move on and address the HMAP thing?
Thank you. Yes, just wanted to bring it up. Seemed like now's a good time.
No, absolutely. So Dr. Bailey and the rest of the commissioners, does that, any other wordsmithing to the letter that's displayed, or anything we would like to add before we can do the final motion and vote?
There's a suggestion to replace county emergency response plan to LEPC or local, which I would support that change.
Okay, LEPC it is.
I think that addresses Sandra's issue with it being labeled as a county issue.
Understood. Yep. Any other modifications to this? Hearing none. Doc, you want to make your motion again?
Yep. Motion is amended to put the language crafted by the director on AZSERC letterhead or however appropriate, and send it as clarification for the earlier letter to Pima County.
I second that motion.
Archangel.
Yeah, you're still on mute.
Of course it is. So I have to do roll call for that one. So Director Levine, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kennedy? Did we lose her?
Looks like it.
Think we may have. Okay. Did Captain Neve hop off? Is he still here? I know he was messaging that he would have to hop off.
No, I'm still here.
Okay. Mr. Kane?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Bailey?
In favor.
Thank you. Mr. Rucker?
In favor.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh?
In favor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jessamine?
Also in favor.
Thank you. And then Miss Ennert.
In favor.
Thank you. All right. The motion carries. Are we okay with moving on to the next topic of discussion?
So
Or is there anything else?
I think we need to address the HMEP grant funding issue with Pima County. So is it an accurate statement to say that because of the assessed non-compliance due to a lack of identifying a community emergency coordinator, that we as the commission have not awarded Pima County any HMEP funds for the upcoming fiscal year?
Correct.
Okay, so can we do if I make a motion to reinstate that funding, would that then cause us to award them some HMEP funds?
Negative, because the HMEP is a federal grant. It runs off of their cycle. So we can reinstate it. However, it would not be open or eligible until the following year. So the submission that went through is the submission based off of the recent fiscal year that opened. So it would not be available until next year. However, as stated, it does not hinder the individual departments from participating in it. It is just the LEPC currently. So you can make a motion to reinstate it and we can change it. Just funding will not be automatically available because it's limited funding throughout the entire fiscal year. So the way that HMEP works, for clarification for the commissioners, it's on a 3-year cycle. So we have to apply for the 3 years as a whole and then each year individually. So when that application closed out, it's for the following fiscal year. So you can reinstate it and we can document it. However, funding from the feds won't be available until after that time frame, if that makes sense.
So it wouldn't, this coming October, there would be no dollars allocated to Pima County organizations or just to Pima County LAPC. So as an example, if say Tucson Fire wanted to apply for HMEP or ask for an HMEP project to do a hazmat tech class, we wouldn't be able to fund a hazmat tech class for Tucson Fire because no dollars have been allocated to them. Or
so hazmat tech classes, sorry, horrible example, Director Levine. Hazmat tech classes actually go through DEMA. So they're funded through DEMA entirely. So the one thing that can happen is if there is a department in the county that has a surplus of funding, they may be able to reallocate it. And basically what that means is, hey, we requested 40,000. We're not going to use all 40. We're only going to use 20. We can reallocate 20 back to the pot for the entire state. And then from there, if the LEPC wants to put in for additional training, they can request it. And Michelle usually communicates when we have funding reallocated and available, and they can request from that. But them directly putting in a request now is outside of the requesting period, according to the guidelines from the federal grant. That's not to say that if somebody else reallocates funds, we can get them funding for that.
Understood. And then I guess this is probably a question for Lane, or maybe it's a question for you, Archangel, but does the LAPC act as the fiscal agent for all of those individual departments and jurisdictions, or do they request independently? So when we say the LAPC is not eligible for funding, is the LAPC actually executing any trainings or projects with HMEP funds, or is it all at the individual agency level? And if it's at the individual agency level, based off the way you're talking, I'm assuming that those agencies have already applied. So saying that we're not going to give the Pima County LAPC HMEP funding has zero operational impact? Question mark.
Correct. So individual departments can request to have trainings if they, and and I can't give you a direct answer because it varies by county and department, because if basically the way the HMEP works, it's a reimbursement grant. So the county or the department individually has to expend the funds, then they submit a request that refunds them the amount. So the money still has to be there. So if we have some counties where the county doesn't allocate for the funding, or maybe an individual department doesn't, and the county can request it for the department and vice versa. So it's not to say that operationally it's going to stop the LEPC from conducting anything, because the individual departments still have, and I believe right now the Southern Regional Hazmat Group has a huge project in HMEP, and that's not to say that if they don't expend anything that they can request to have that reallocated elsewhere as well.
So then the effect of us denying the LAPC funds was strictly an administrative procedure that perhaps caused some consternation to the Pima County LAPC, but ultimately is not impacting preparedness efforts in Pima County.
Correct.
Just the oversight. It's just we're losing the oversight in the discussions in committee and the allocations in decision making. It's a free for all for all, dozens of fire and law enforcement agencies and public industry and so on throughout the county. Will just be a free for all to the state, and we won't. We'll have to have those discussions with them then as a result of this. But we hold no oversight of where that money goes in our region as an LEPC. It's all a free for all, which, if that's the decision, then that's the decision that's made. My question is, in this non-compliance, did Coconino County receive a similar for not being in compliance, or was this just a Pima County grant issue?
So I'm going to respond to a couple of these questions. Mr. Spalla, no, Coconino did not receive this because Coconino did not apply for any funding. So
thank you.
Impact that. As far as what you're saying, as far as Pima County controlling or it being a free-for-all, what we changed years ago, probably in 2020, was we sent out invitations to everyone in every county. So all counties, all LEPCs, all first responders, all police departments, anybody who's on my distribution list will get notification that we have HMEP funding available and anybody can apply for it. The only one that has control over that HMEP is the state of Arizona, ADQ. We basically did this because what we found was that many of the LEPCs years back were only allowing certain fire departments to receive funding, and some of the rural and underserved community fire departments or volunteer fire departments, first responders, were not getting they weren't even getting the information. And one of the requirements in the HMEP grant is that we provide services to the rural and underserved communities of every county. So that's why we did that. So as far as Pima County is concerned, when Pima County would apply for these funds, they would use them to send either Pima County employees or other fire department personnel to these trainings. And they would actually cover the expense so that these smaller fire departments or other fire departments or first responders didn't have to expend the funds themselves. That's how it worked. However, what we've done recently is we've engaged many of these other rural and underserved communities, fire departments, first responders, volunteer fire departments to participate in the HMEP, including tribal agencies, so that everybody's getting trained and not just the select few. So that's how that worked. So Mr. Levine, in response to your motion, you can make a motion to reinstate funding in HMEP availability moving forward. What that means is I've already submitted my application. Pima County did not have any project narratives in this particular performance period. However, throughout the year, I continuously get reallocation or funding for reallocation. And at that time, I will reach out to everyone, including Pima County, to let them know that they can apply for a project so that we can send somebody for training or whatever else they need, if that makes sense. Brent, it looks good.
Thank you for that. So we're losing the ability for those departments that can't afford to spend the money up front, where they were gaining that assistance from Pima County. They'll be out of the equation for the year. Yeah, and I'm looking at I think it was $24,000 that was the projects, and we had our projects listed from 10/1/24 to September of 25, and where we had planned on spending that money. Okay, all we can do is talk about it, bring this up, and we are at your mercy to share with us. Sandra, please, if you would.
Just want a point of clarification for those that are speaking on behalf of Pima County. The funds that are allocated to HMEP, Pima County does not send or obligate any funds for any local fire districts. It is against county policy for us to travel any non-county employees, so that is not in fact a true statement. What we do is rescind the dollars that are allocated to us as county government and work through Michelle and her team, specifically with the districts or entities that are asking to have those dollars re-obligated. There's no cost savings. So when the county accepts money, the only funding that we obligate are within our procurement rules. Most of the time, that is for specific trainings that are hosted locally and available to local districts or first responders in the hazmat community.
Thank you, Sandra, for your clarification on that. Okay, I'm okay moving forward. I have no more questions. I appreciate your time on this, and I'm happy. We'll take this to our next meeting. We'll talk about it, and we'll move forward. Thank you.
So with that additional information, I would like to move that pending the availability of the obligated or unused funds in the next cycles of HMEP, that additional dollars be awarded to Pima County based off of requests and availability.
I'll second that. Paul Marsh.
All right. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulty, so I had to turn my video off, but let me get this captured for the roll call. All right. Director Levine, how do you vote?
Vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kennedy, did we lose her?
She's gone.
Okay. Captain Neve, I believe we lost him. Did we lose his alternate? Sergeant Henson, are you available?
I am here and I vote in favor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kane?
Aye.
Dr. Bailey?
In favor.
Thank you. Mr. Rucker?
In favor.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh?
In favor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jessamine?
In favor.
Thank you. And Miss Enner?
In favor.
Thank you. And with that, the motion passes. The next item I have on here is review of the federal, state rules and or statutes, what can and cannot be done if LEPCs do not comply. Was this addressed in conversation, or do we need to go into further or does the commission need to go into further discussion over this item?
So I don't have any further discussion. I just would like it entered into the minutes that I feel as though our role is to assist the counties in providing good services and informing the public as it relates to hazardous materials threats, and that our default should be how do we assist as opposed to how do we enforce and hold people accountable as we move forward into the future.
We will make sure to note that. Next item, roles and responsibilities of the community emergency coordinator. I believe that was already discussed unless there's additional discussion that needs to be had by the commission.
I think that issue's been resolved in accordance with the previous motion.
Okay. And then the last one for discussion is reviewing the commission's legal authorization to delegate initial emergency response plan review to AZSERC staff written response. I believe this was partially clarified, but it's open for discussion.
Well, I can accept the written response or make a motion to accept the written response that was provided by council, which in a nutshell for the rest of you basically says that while the commission can delegate some of the work to do the review, we are not off the hook as commissioners for actually reviewing that material ourselves. I don't know that it needs beyond that acceptance of that guidance. And it may be for a later day to figure out how the commission wants to actually then tackle that work, if it's a everybody does everything, or if we can somehow divide and conquer. I have heard a number of times, though, over the last couple of meetings that it seems, at least from the county's perspective, that this commission may move a little too slowly for them to make effective decisions and changes on the ground. So one thing that I don't know that we have to actually decide today, but that I would like to propose people noodle on, is that maybe we need to meet more often than every 6 months, or we need to create some sort of working group or subcommittee or whatever you guys want to call it, so that we can continue to have these conversations, maybe not so formally and not so long, but to try and get answers to the folks who need them without having to wait until October. But I would make a motion to accept the written written recommendations from council.
And I believe real quick on that one, Dr. Bailey, that it is scheduled for the regularly scheduled October meeting as part of the old business to go over that specific restructuring of the process.
I second that motion.
Can I clarify real quick that you said written response from council? Did we receive something in writing from council?
Yes, we did. You sent it to us in our packet.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Give me 1 second while I...
And it was discussed in person at the last, whenever that was, we were meeting, that was kind of what was going to be happening, is that we're not off the hook. We just need to figure out our own internal process for accepting rather than approving those documents and who's going to be responsible for that. But again, I think we really do need to consider meeting even informally, although I don't know what that means for the open meetings rules to do some of these things.
And with that, I will go through the roll call vote for being in favor of the motion. Director Levine?
I vote in favor.
Thank you, sir. Sergeant Henson?
I vote in favor.
Thank you. Mr. Kane?
In favor.
Thank you. Dr. Bailey?
I say aye.
Thank you. Mr. Rucker?
In favor.
Mr. Marsh?
I'm in favor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jessamine? Uh-oh, did we lose another one? I believe we did. Miss Ennert?
I vote in favor.
And with that, let me confirm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we are still maintaining quorum. We still have 7, and quorum for today required 6. So we are still good. And that motion carries regarding the written response provided by council to the commissioners in regards to the emergency response plan review. Next items. So we've already covered the executive session. Action item review and discussion. If you want to go over that one, Michelle.
I'm sorry, I don't have it prepared.
Okay.
Going back an item real quick.
Sure.
And I don't know if this requires a motion or if it's just a request that gets entered in the minutes, but before we send out any additional or new non-compliance or rejection letters, and I don't know if this is in the current process, so shame on me for not understanding it, but before we do that, whether it's accepting, approving, rejecting, or non-compliance letters, if the commission could have an opportunity to review that correspondence, and if we need to do a special meeting to discuss it, I would prefer to do that so that we maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that we've just worked our way through.
So for clarification, Director Levine, the commission reviews every documentation. There's nothing that goes out by the AZSERC staff. Everything gets reviewed by the commission prior to it going out. So nothing comes from us directly. At most, what we'll do is a follow-up email for requested information, but none of the compliance information comes from us directly. It is all reviewed and approved by the commission prior to.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I appreciate that because I didn't do my due diligence, but I remember talking about the letters, but I don't remember seeing the language before the county did. So either I missed something or it wasn't where I thought it was going to be. So yes, if we could have like hey, commissioners, read this action item before we send it and send us back any wordsmithing that may fix it, because I know I get lost in that shared drive sometimes. But I'm with you, Director. I apparently failed on my homework too because I didn't read it or know that it was there to be read. So shame on me.
Yes. So all the verbiage for these letters was discussed on the December 7th.
Oh, then I'm off the hook. We'll blame my second for that then, because
I'll let you take it up with the sergeant major. No, so yeah, all that information was reviewed and approved and discussed during that meeting on December 7th with minor modifications and edits that were made. And then at the commission's direction, my signature was the one that was placed on those based off of the current standing of the commission with the recent changes with the executive director retiring and kind of where we were in limbo. The question was presented of who needed to sign that. And because I had been appointed the director, that was at the commission's request to have my signature on there. But all of the verbiage for those letters was approved, discussed, approved with minor edits, all by the commission.
Were they in the packets ahead of time?
Yes, ma'am. They're all in the December 8th meeting minutes.
They were all
December 7th. But the meeting minutes were provided at 8th and all the documentation in there should be.
That wasn't the meeting I missed where y'all voted to approve something before you actually read it. I listened to that. There was something very goofy. Sorry, am I still on the record? There was something very goofy about that meeting when I was listening to it. Like, wait a minute, you approved something before you actually saw it, and then somebody was going to get it by a close of business that week, and we should probably not do that again.
I will send you the executive session minutes where it was reviewed and discussed, and then they voted on it.
What did we vote on to then saw afterwards? Was that the plan? Meaning you, because I wasn't there.
AZERC would review the plans and then come forward to the commissioners after they reviewed the plans. That's what we voted on.
No. There was actually something like, yeah, we'll temporarily approve it. And I was listening to the minutes afterwards, like, how the heck could you call that back then? But anyway, for another time, I will do my due diligence better going forward. Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
I need some coffee.
I'll
Is there
second.
anything else we need to do?
I believe it's just action item review with what was outlined by the motions.
Oh,
We
so
can-
Gabe's gonna send an email to Michelle. Michelle's
Which
gonna
we already
put it on
received that
Coop
one.
stuff, and then we're all gonna review the letter that we're gonna send to Coconino before we send it to Coconino, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And then for item regarding Coconino, there was a request from the commission for some additional documentation, which was already discussed with Coconino. The written clarification for Pima County regarding the community emergency coordinator. I believe that's the title. I'm mixing all my titles today at this point. And then the HMEP was the other item for doing that, which with the motion carried, we can adjust that moving forward. I believe the only other item, no, I don't think there was anything else. Unless the commission has anything pending or outstanding for additional action items, we will work on that letter that was provided by Director Levine to get that formulated and obviously present it to the commission for final say-so before anything goes out. Is there any other items from the commission?
Huzzah. Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
You need a call to the public.
Oh, we did that already twice. Is anybody even still with us?
It's been a long one. So with that, call to the public for any items pending or missing or anything that wants to be that needs to be discussed by the public.
This is Jasmine with Mojave County. I just wanted to know if I could get a quick clarification on something that was discussed earlier in the meeting, if that's possible, or if I needed to wait to do that or to contact Michelle.
No, go right ahead. What do you want?
In regards to the voting roster, if we have our voting members, but our alternates sometimes may vary, or if they say, hey, this is who we're sending as an alternate, but they're not on our membership, are they not allowed to vote in place of that? Does their name have to be on the roster?
No,
That is my understanding, right?
They do not need to be on the roster. We've gone over this in open meeting law presentations that we've done, or open meeting law. So what you need to do is they just need to let you know ahead of the meeting, either in writing or call, or and that it is reflected in the minutes that person B will be voting or be representing person A for this meeting, but they do not have to be on the roster.
I thought they did. Wasn't that the point we did like last time where they had to identify the primary and the secondary, and that's why Coconino was getting in trouble?
Yeah, I think that was my confusion when it was going over Coconino's County, because I don't have our alternates change from time to time. So I was just, I don't want.
Jasmine,
sorry, go ahead.
Coconino's is a whole different situation that has nothing to do with yours. You guys have been in compliance with your roster since the beginning, and you're very active on sending us your applications and keeping us up to date on what you're doing in your LEPC regarding your voting members. So it's two separate issues, I believe.
Oh, then I need clarification, because I thought the AZSERC had to approve the membership.
Only the vote. Primary voting.
If they vote, they have to be on somebody's list and approved as eligible to vote, right? So wouldn't that be the alternates too?
No, ma'am. And I'll get you the state statute on that. And I'll get you a copy of the open meeting law so you can review it as well, so that you can see how that works. But alternates do not need to be voted on. They don't need to be on the roster because of the fact that they change so often. I don't know if Jeff's on. He can talk about that as well if he wants.
No, we delve pretty deep into that open meeting law. So I just, like I said, I just wanted some clarification because for the last few years we've been diligently working to make sure everything we did was in compliance. And so I was just trying to clarify for just moving forward. That's all. So anyways, thanks. And that's all I had.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Well, then I'm going to ask if you could send me a refresher course or some sort of summary, because I apparently totally missed that point when we had this discussion at one of the last meetings. Because I thought that was part of the whole non-compliance letter, was that, hey, and you have people who are voting who weren't actually approved. So obviously I'm missing the nuance there.
Right, because we didn't have the minutes that identified who these people were that were voting. We just knew they had mentioned a name in there that we didn't know who they were. So in reference to our roster, if they mentioned a name and it wasn't on our roster, well, we didn't know why they were voting, because, and then now that we found the minutes that they just sent in on April 16th, they identified that this particular person was voting on behalf of, I think it was Jim Driscoll, the sheriff. So we have that information now.
Okay, so Michelle, you and I can have this conversation offline afterwards, but number 4, and I quote, submit voting membership applications for any members considered for voting LEPC membership for review and approval, et cetera, et cetera. Any LEPC applicants who have not received AZSERC approval are not eligible to vote at an LEPC meeting, is what was in that letter to Coconino. So then maybe we need to do a better job of wordsmithing in the future, because I took that to mean if you have not been approved by the AZSERC, you don't get to vote. So we probably should have had some clarification to Coconino in that letter to that regard as well.
And when we had our training to Coconino, we explained to them how it worked regarding the primary voting members and alternates several times, actually, and I can get you those dates that we had those trainings. But
I'm just saying I can see, because I'm frustrated, I can see why the counties are frustrated, because in the letter we sent them, it says, if you aren't approved, you don't get to vote. And Jasmine just brought it up. It is very, there's a lot of nuance that I guess we're losing somehow. And in the hopes of moving forward in a supportive and positive manner, it's really hard for me to explain what the expectations are if I don't understand them either. So maybe we can include some of us newbies in that training as well, just so that I can understand, it says in this letter that we sent them X, but it really means Y with these exceptions and exemptions and things. So if you could also include the commission members in these trainings for the counties, that would be, I think, helpful. Not that I really want to go to more meetings, but I guess I need to do my due diligence too.
okay, thank you. I'll get that over to you. And I'll actually put on the agenda to have Jeff Cantrell come in and his team do a training in open meeting law for the entire AZSERC.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thanks, Jeff.
So can we do adjourn now?
Future agenda item discussion. Well,
Right.
one of them is the open meeting law refresher. I believe one other item is going to be the process for the emergency response plans as discussed in the April meeting. Is there any other items that the commission would like to see moving forward for the October meeting?
More often shorter meetings, much shorter meetings.
Okay, we will put that as an item for discussion in October. Until then, you're going to have to wait 4 months before you can see us again.
Archangel, the other new business items that we had in the last official meeting will still carry over to the October meeting, correct? The future.
Correct.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Just because this is a special meeting, those items didn't carry over, but the ones that were discussed in April will be in the October meeting.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, sir. All right, so I know we brought this up briefly. The proposed date and time of the next regularly scheduled meeting is October 15th, 2024, but I know there was already some contentions with schedules, so Michelle will more than likely be reaching out in the same manner as previously to identify the best suited time for the majority of the commissioners, at a minimum to meet quorum. But with that, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All right, unfortunately, we have to go through the normal process for adjourning. Let's go. All right, Director Levine.
I vote in favor.
You don't want to discuss this one?
No, sir, I'm good.
All right, Sergeant Henson.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kane.
Aye.
Dr. Bailey.
Yes, please.
Mr. Rucker.
Yes.
Mr. Marsh.
Yes.
And Miss Ennert.
Yes, in favor.
All right. And with that, the meeting is adjourned at 4:18. Thank you all for taking the time to attend. We will see you at the next meeting.
Thanks, Archangel.
Thank you.
Amazing.
You bet. Thank you.